Do you need a website for your school? This is something I think anyone in the position of starting a school, getting down to the last few months, starting to think about how you're actually going to do this. This is something that we all ask ourselves. So when I started back in the serious planning started in the kind of early summer, late spring of 2014, and once you get your physical location decided and the name for your school and you start talking to banks and getting your textbooks set up and looking at furniture, you eventually you ask yourself, well, how am I actually going to reach people? And that's really the main advantage of having a website is that people can experience something of your business um, without taking the time and energy to actually come to your place in person. And also, a website can help remove any subtle elements of pressure people may feel because it is, regardless of the outcome, um, it is a sales situation. When someone inquires about your school, there is a hope in the back of your mind that they're going to sign up and give you money. So the ability to kind of see what you're about, see what you look like, who you are, um, what your prices are, the location, the ability to access all of that without actually having the pressure and the, time commitment of coming to see you can be very, very helpful. Most people that, most leads that I get are word of mouth, but even so, most of them check out the website usually a couple times. You can sign up for a Google Analytics account and you can actually see how many people visit your site and um, what pages they visit, how long they stay, and stuff. And so that's great. A website can also be a great lead magnet. People might feel like they're interested in your school, but again, the time factor. Do they want to drive across town to come see you when they've got to pick up their kids and maybe buy some groceries? So you can kind of qualify the leads very passively. Just have a contact page and ask them for their phone number. Mail address will automatically be included because they're going to send it to you from one. The maybe the what type of lesson they're interested in, what time of day. If it's a child, you can ask the age of the student, and for any student, you can ask their English experience, and then also, how did they find out about you? And then they just send that in with one click, and it comes to you. And so you've got everything set up for yourself without ever having had to make a phone call, which is great. It sounds crazy, but when you start your business and you're teaching classes and you're taking care of all the billing and all the prep and all the other thousands of odds and ends that are suddenly your responsibility, just making the time to make a phone call can seem like this really monumental task. So the more you can automate things for yourself, the simpler you can make your funnel and your curriculum, the better. So like for my kids, um, I'm only using 4 textbooks for all of my elementary and kindergarten school students, and that makes it easy, right? They can just even for makeup lessons, it's a lot easier. They can go maybe one level up or one level down, and it's not that big of a deal. And so websites can be very helpful with that as well, just simplifying everything. So yes, you need a website, and on that website, on every single page, you should have contact information, including your phone number, email, and address on every single page, readily accessible. Your address should link to Google Maps so they can click that and get directions to your school. The easier you can make it for them to come see you, the better. Um, so also, you really want to make sure your pricing is accessible. You can even dedicate a page to it. Real keen pricing. What do you cost? You'd be surprised how many schools don't do that. And I think the thinking is they want to get you in their funnel and they want to unload all their tactics on you. And at the very end, they're gonna drop some massive yearly fee or um, that's how it was in my previous employer. So don't do that to people. The clearer, more transparent, the more honest, the more accessible, the easier you can make things, the more money you're going to make in the end. So those are more kind of business and design principle related things. So when it comes to how to go about getting a website, um, there are a lot of options. Recently, Squarespace and Wix have kind of arisen on the scene, and they are extremely user friendly, very much plug and play, no tech skills required type of platforms. I don't personally like them because I like having more control over the nuance and basically the whole platform than what they allow. They can be handy if you just want a website in a couple hours and you really don't want to worry about it if it's going to be something simple, like a brochure website is what they're called. So you're not really passing any data back and forth. You're just, like a brochure. They can see where you are, what you do, and that's about it. Ironically, they can actually end up being more expensive over the years. 20 bucks a month doesn't seem like a lot, and it isn't. But if you pay that for 5, 6 years, you will eventually surpass the price of having hired a professional to build you a website. Um, at the other extreme is building a website using, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript yourself, which is a lot of work and you need to have a lot of previous knowledge. Um, and so I wouldn't recommend that unless you already know how. And if you already know how, you probably wouldn't be watching this video because it's one of those things that once you're in that industry, it's so addictive and fun. You know what you want. In the middle, between building a 100% custom website and going with a 100% kind of pre-packaged website, are what are called CMSs, which means content management system. The most popular these days is WordPress, and figures vary, but something like 30% of all websites on the internet use WordPress, and it's a great platform. I love it. It's What's nice about it is it's so flexible. You can build literally any type of web app, any type of website imaginable, customize it 100%, or you can just buy a theme, install it, and just configure some information about your business, and that's it. Um, so there's a lot of leeway with what you can do. Besides WordPress, there's Magento, and there's another one called. There's a bunch of them out there. I think Magento and this, what was it? Uh, Joomla, Joomla. But those have kind of fallen out of fashion. So my recommendation would be WordPress because it's a nice middle ground between kind of Mickey Mouse websites like Wix and then, deep core, like hardcore, fully custom builds where you have to configure everything for different screen sizes and, connect to the server and build your own web forms to send data back and forth. If you're into that and you have like 6 months to a year to learn how to do it, I would recommend it because it's a fascinating industry. But if you're not in that situation, WordPress is a really nice middle ground. You can think of it as kind of half of a website. And what I mean by that is all of the server functionality in terms of serving your files to the internet and configuring all the HTTP requests and everything so that it actually works is all taken care of. You just buy a hosting account and you install WordPress literally with the click of a button, and you need a custom domain which you can hook up to your hosting service, and then you'll have a live site. And from there, you can really do what you want. There are thousands and thousands of WordPress themes out there. Most of them are paid, but there are a lot, more than you'd ever need, that are free. And there are also thousands and thousands of free plugins, which are, how to explain, they're basically little applications that add functionality to your WordPress site. So WordPress was originally designed as a blogging platform. It started taking off in 2003. And so that's philosophy is kind of carried through. So basically, if the functionality is not something that 80% of WordPressers, I'm sorry, WordPress users need, then that functionality will be built into a plugin. And you can do things like create contact forms, create sliders, image galleries, so much security, SEO, um, weird JavaScript things so you can create animations on your site. And the list goes on and on. There's an unbelievable number of them. But my point is that if you just take a little bit of time, you can go to somewhere like udemy.com or even YouTube and follow a tutorial on how to build your own website. You will have entered the world of web development, and you will have a very valuable and fun skill, and you'll also have complete control over your own website, which is really, really important. WordPress is also nice because you can back up your data, you can revert changes, save changes, and it's just such a vast community. It's very, very well documented and very user-friendly, actually. So that would be my recommendation. Now, when you get in talking about cost, right? So Wix is something like a flat $20 fee per month. Um, WordPress itself is free, but you will need hosting. In my experience, most hosting services tend to offer 3-year packages, anywhere from $200 to $300 or $400. If it's your first round with them, you usually get a pretty good deal. Like it's about $200 for 3 years. Unlimited sites, by the way, which is really, really reasonable. That works out to like less than $3 a month for your hosting. And you'll need a domain name. Those can be anywhere from around $10 to maybe $20, generally speaking. If it's something with some really heavy keywords like insurance or finance, and especially if it's one of those with .com, then you can get into the thousands of dollars. But if you're just running your English school somewhere in Japan, you're probably not going to pay more than $20. Don't quote me on that, but generally speaking. And so from there, probably your biggest expense, if you really want to be safe, is what you're going to be paying the web designer you hire. These days, the world of online freelance marketplaces has really, really taken off. You can usually get something decent built, but it can be pretty hit or miss. If you go with a professional agency, you're probably going to pay a lot more than you'd be comfortable with, just because they have a lot more people to pay, a lot more overhead. And in Japan, be especially careful. Some companies will charge you like $50 a month just to keep your site online, which is a complete ripoff. You should never pay that much, especially for a simple WordPress site. It would never be more than about $5 a month for hosting. So if you do want to go with like a professional agency, you really want to make sure what the long-term costs are going to be. In my experience working with clients, it was just a one-time fee. Here's what your hosting is going to cost. Here's your domain name cost. Here's what I'll charge you to build the site. And after that, all you need to do is renew your domain name once a year. It usually is a little more expensive for the renewal, and then renew your hosting whenever the contract's up, which is a very fair way to do things. But there are different types of relationships. If you want to keep your designer around, if you want to make changes, for example, if you have events at your school and you kind of want to upload photos and videos of that, or if you want someone to kind of handle uploading content in general, if you have a blog or something, which is really actually very, very easy on WordPress. Like it's really not that much more complicated than using an iPhone or Facebook for that matter. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options out there, but my final recommendation would be go with WordPress, maybe for the initial build, hire someone to build out your site the way you want it, and before you hire them, spend a week or two looking at other websites and kind of sketch out what you want your website to look like, what kind of features you want it to have, colors as well, and then have a kind of maybe 1, maybe 2 meetings with your designer, and then have them build it. And if it looks like what you want, say, that's good. And if it doesn't, ask for a few changes, but be really careful about continually adding changes. That's called scope creep. And it's kind of like you start to get into the flow of things, and you start to realize, what types of functionality and things are out there. And, the initial plan is kind of lost to this ever more complex behemoth of a website, which is fine if you have the money, but, you want to have a fair idea of what you want, and then your designer can build it, and you pay them, and that's all she wrote. So those are my thoughts on it. I kind of took a unique path because I started off with zero knowledge of web development, and it was actually the website I had built for my school that got me started on WordPress, and then getting familiar with WordPress got me interested in learning like the real skill of development, working with code and stuff. So it's kind of ironic that that happened that way, but I'm glad for it. Um, and I actually got ripped off by the designer I hired. He did a really good job with my business cards and brochures and the signs from my school, but just a slap together piece of crap website. So be really careful with that. And that's another reason why it's really important to have an idea of what you want. And as always, you should probably get a few different quotes from people. Um, I did that with the renewal estimate for my school, and the variation was unbelievable. I went with the lowest offer, which was still really high, but the highest offer was, what would that be? About 70% higher than the lowest offer. So you want to be really careful about that. But if, on the other hand, you have, like if you receive a grant or you get a business loan, um, or you want to have lower taxes, sometimes it's helpful to actually pay a little bit more as long as you feel like that money is being well used and you're getting value for it. So those are my thoughts. The video is already long enough, so I am going to stop it here. Thanks for watching.